And you also, in your article, you did point out the fact that big money has a lot to say in politics. So when supporters of an Article 5 will say, "Well, what's your solution? What is your solution? What do you use to counter that?"
My solution is that a great deal of what needs to be done can be done through other ways, maybe through proposing amendments through the usual process. But a lot of the things that people complain about can be done with ordinary laws, and some of them can be done just by adhering to the Constitution we have right now. I find it very strange that people say, well, we need a constitutional convention because people aren't following the Constitution.
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
If the problem is they're not adhering to the current one that has the standing of James Madison and George Washington, why ever would we think that they would adhere to a new one? If the problem is enforcement, let's enforce.
One of the people on the conservative side, I sometimes put that in quotation marks, whatever that means today. I'm not, there's a definition, but it's been misdefined so much we're not even sure what that means anymore. But they're calling for a balanced budget amendment, which actually, at first view, sounds reasonable, and term limits. Of course, if the Constitution was adhered to, we probably would have balanced budgets. But I've looked at the proposed balanced budgets, and there's always an escape clause. And the escape clause makes it more dangerous than an unbalanced budget. One of the escape clauses is in the time, with the exception is in time of war, and I don't think too many people of sound mind want to have a war, so they get an unbalanced budget. The other one is a state of national emergency. Now, you're a constitutional attorney. Can you I've read the Constitution, 7 articles, 27 amendments. I don't see the term national emergency in that. So if an amendment like that was passed, we're already in a national emergency. It's been 11 of them, and I think since 1978. But it would give no incentive for Congress to ever get out of a national emergency, and it also would give legitimacy to the concept of a national emergency. It would make it constitutional. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's taking something that people made up out of thin air and giving it the status of our highest law.
That's right. So that makes the solution more dangerous than the problem. And what my opinion on the term limits is our founders gave us term limits at the ballot box, frequent elections, and that's really the hallmark of a free country when every 2 years Congress, the House is up for total re-election, and 1/3 of the Senate, and every 4 years the president, and then you get the state elected officials as well every 2 years in some states. And it's interesting, some states do have term limits and have balanced budget amendments, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on the state's economic policies. They seem to circumvent these balanced budget amendments and continue to go in debt.
The states that have strong finances are states that have electorates that demand strong finances.
Right.
You can't get around that. If you hire people who are irresponsible to be your officials, you will get irresponsible public policy.
Yep. One of the things I marvel at, a lot of the people at the state level say that we have to rein in the out-of-control federal government. And you look at the state governments, and they're a little out of control as well. And as our friend Publius Hulda says, that state officials have been collaborating with the federal government for over 100 years, and they like taking the money. And, when I testify, I usually testify in New Hampshire or Massachusetts and in Maine on this, and there's other states where I work. They say, what's your solution? I said, well, the first one is stop taking the money. If you don't like federal controls, stop taking the money. If you don't take the money, they can't control you. And it seems to me it's almost like they want to go back to the constituents and sound like they're trying to lower taxes or get their hands around it. And it's almost like cosmetic superficiality. So I proposed this Article 5 convention for a balanced budget amendment, and but I don't think it's going to go through. But at least I'm trying. Meanwhile, they're part of the problem. They're supporting big government. They're supporting unbalanced budgets, and on and on.
Yeah, it's a free vote, and you hear this in state after state across the country. The state legislators say, oh, it's a free vote. It isn't going to affect anything. I don't have to make hard choices, and if I cast this vote, then I won't be held accountable for what I'm doing on state law that actually is going to take effect. It's very responsible.
That's right. The other thing is that the